Welcome to Citrin-Cooperman's Corner Chats. I'm Peter Katz of West Fair Communications, publisher of the Westchester and Fairfield County Business Journals, westfaironline.com, and News at Noon and other electronic newsletters to keep you fully informed. Now, if you've ever wondered whether your computers are vulnerable to hackers, ransomware, and a variety of other hazards, wonder no more. With us is Kevin Ricci, a partner in Citrin-Cooperman's Providence office and a leader within its technology, risk advisory, and cybersecurity practice. Now, Kevin has more than 25 years of extensive experience in technology services, including computer systems, security assessments, cybersecurity awareness training, database development, privacy programs, and so much more. And welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. Great to be here.
Now, Kevin, based on your experience and observations, how unusual is it for an accounting and professional services firm such as Citrin-Cooperman to have the ability to offer clients the kind of expertise in computers and all things technology that you're able to offer?
Yeah, Citrin-Cooperman is very proud to offer differentiating advisory services, including cybersecurity. It really helps us be able to provide our clients with an all-in-one solution to any of the issues that they're having. And again, cybersecurity is certainly a differentiator because many of our competitors don't have such a service to offer to their clients.
Now, with so many companies relying on computers to get the work done, how important is it to make sure that the computer systems are safe?
Oh, absolutely. In this day and age, if you open up your favorite news feed, you can't help but see the number of data breaches and cyber attacks that are happening on an almost hourly basis. It almost risks us having a sense of breach fatigue, meaning, boy, is it ever going to stop? And is this just the new normal? But while it may not be impossible to stop all of the occurrences of data breaches and cyber attacks, we can certainly reduce the chance of them ever happening down to a minimal level.
How does this happen? When you go in to see a client and you take a look at the computer systems, how are you able to tell whether a system is safe or vulnerable?
Yeah, it's quite a process because we have to look at both people and processes and the technology. So it's really an in-depth look, trying to confirm that, for example, the employees possess the awareness needed to detect and avoid those types of attacks, that their technology that they have in place is functioning as needed, and it's enough and mature enough to be able to defend against today's new attack vectors as well. And do they have the policies and procedures in place to help provide those guidelines, if you will, to help successfully navigate the many threats that lurk out there?
What are some of these threats? What could they do to my system? If I had a business, had a lot of computers, I had internet connections, I have emails coming in and going out, what can they do to me?
Yeah, these cyber criminals, unfortunately, are rather nefarious, and there's a pretty good deal that they can do. For example, one of their attacks that have been very successful and very lucrative are ransomware attacks. And this is basically where they send in a type of malware that encrypts any system that it touches and can quickly propagate throughout an environment. So it may just start, for example, on a receptionist computer, but unless the proper safeguards are in place, that can spread very quickly to pretty much all of the computers in the environment, as well as servers and backup devices and so on and so forth. So again, the sky's the limit, unfortunately, where these bad guys, what they can do.
If you happen to go into a client and you see that there are signs of an attack, are there things that you can do immediately to help close the barn door, or is it too late?
No, absolutely. We can mitigate some of the damage that can happen from that type of attack. For example, we can disconnect those systems from the network, basically shunting them off from the rest of the environment if we can act quickly enough. Sometimes what they do is they'll lurk oftentimes in an environment for upwards of over 200 days. That's called dwell time. So if we know that one system has been hit, what we can do is do a threat assessment to make sure that they're not lurking and waiting in the background, if you will, that they've left a back door in place where they're able to come in at a future date and continue their damage.
Is that one of the services that you offer, providing advice on how to rebuild a system that's been attacked and perhaps make it more secure for the future?
Absolutely. So what we try to do is do preventative measures and be proactive in terms of preventing ever reaching that point. But unfortunately, it does happen, and some of our clients have been struck by a cyber criminal, and they're the victim of a data breach or cyber attack. So our team, led by certified ethical hackers, are able to come in and help right the ship, if you will, stop the bleeding initially, determine how the attack occurred so we can prevent it from happening again, and then work on restoring operations so the business can resume providing the goods and services that they do to their customers.
How many people are on your team at Citrin-Cooperman, and what is a typical process like when you're going in to see, let's say, a new client?
Mhm. So typically, we have approximately 30 people as part of our team, each possessing varying skill sets and levels of expertise. And in terms of how we begin with a client, because that's something we hear quite often from clients, they're filled with a little bit of anxiety, saying, "I don't really know how to get our hands around, our cybersecurity. What are our risks? What are our threats?" So what we do is we typically begin with a cybersecurity risk assessment using a proprietary tool that we've developed called the SCORE report, where SCORE is short for Security, Compliance, and Operations Risk Evaluation. This affordable, high-level assessment allows us to really get our hands around their environment and really take a look at all the potential risks that they have. From there, we're then able to provide them with a de facto roadmap, a strategic roadmap, so they can know where to focus their resources on the highest levels of risk.
What situations have you encountered, without obviously doing anything unethical in terms of disclosing confidential information, but what kind of situations have you encountered in real life in terms of cybersecurity and safety?
Sure. So this has ranged anywhere from cleaning crews stealing laptops off of desks after hours and rolling them out the back door, all the way through to far more sophisticated types of cyber attacks. We had one particular client who was the victim of one of these attacks, and unfortunately, there were passwords that were used, for various applications that were the same password. So the criminal was able to get in there and not only attack, a segment of their environment, but they were able to move freely through by using the same credentials into their backup systems, into their production systems, so on and so forth. So we had a lot to disentangle in that particular event. So it does run the gamut, but those are the ones that we don't like to see because, again, those more sophisticated attacks are a little bit difficult, a little bit more time consuming to recover from. But thankfully, we've got a great track record of getting our clients quickly restored and back up and running again.
So is it safe to say that it's not only the bits and bytes that you have to be concerned about, but the actual hardware?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had data breaches that initiated from an individual using a personal phone where they were getting their business emails communicated through that device. And so not only after they lost the phone, not only was there a data breach, the individual who took the phone was able to then send emails on that person's behalf. But when the cyber insurance policy came into play to try to recoup some of the damages, unfortunately, the insurance company basically said, well, because that was a personal device, it's outside the scope of what was covered. So unfortunately, we're not going to reimburse you for some of the damages there. So,
Yeah, you mentioned cyber insurance. How important is it for a business to at least consider having an insurance policy that might help pay for reconstruction costs after the fact, should there be a major attack?
yeah, Peter, great question. It's almost imperative at this point that a company has to arm themselves with a good policy that reflects the type of data that they have in their environment. These costs can add up very quickly, ranging from fines and penalties from the various regulatory bodies in the event that sensitive data, was compromised, to the replacement of software and hardware, to having to send out, notifications to the individuals whose data was compromised, all the way to the reputational damage. When a company suffers a data breach or a cyber attack, unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of customers that no longer want to do business with that company. So again, you're going to lose money there. You add all this up, it's very quickly 6, 7, and even higher figure sums. So having an insurance policy, again, imperative.
How is it that you got interested in this particular field? Certainly, and once you have a technology background, you can go almost anywhere. But why this particular cybersecurity interest on your part?
Yeah, so I spent the first 15 years or so of my career internal, running IT environments, and while there's certainly a lot of satisfaction in doing so, there was almost a sense of okay, I've done a really good job at protecting my company's internal data and operations. I had a sense of I'd really like to begin helping our clients as well, because I saw that there was a tremendous need there. There's a lot of IT professionals out there that are phenomenal at what they do, but they focus almost squarely, Peter, on keeping the lights on, meaning keeping your laptops and your desktops and your servers running, and they're not necessarily thinking of how best to defend the company from attack. And I saw that I had a really high degree of interest in that area, and it just was a natural progression from internal to external to that consulting role, and it's been a great ride.
In the news, occasionally we hear about operations in places like Russia, where they have just rooms and rooms filled with people doing nothing but trying to break into computer systems, trying to spread misinformation, and so forth. Based on your observations, how pervasive is the business of cyber attacks?
Yeah, it's very, very lucrative for these cyber criminals that are based overseas, and they're helped by the fact that it's very difficult to extradite these criminals and even track them, because they'll hide and obfuscate their activity through proxy servers and things like that. So you really can't tell where these attacks are originating from. So they can operate in near anonymity, overseas. So again, they have this protective cloak around them. Some of these individuals also have governments that basically are hand in hand with these hackers and these criminals. So again, they have almost immunity from ever being captured, and again, they can make a significant amount of money from cybercrime.
Yeah. Where does all of this fit in with the general services that Citrin-Cooperman can offer a client? Is this the top of the list, an afterthought?
Mhm.
Where should this be set in terms of importance to your clients?
Yeah, so what's good for our practice is that there's really no companies out there that are not really utilizing technology. And the stark fact is that if you are in fact using computers and the internet, which at this point really who is not, you have a need to protect that environment. So it's really a service that can be offered. It's almost agnostic across industry and business size. And again, we've had great success in providing these services across the board to all of our clients.
You had mentioned that ransomware is one of the things floating around, and holding a company's data for ransom has become really a big business. Can you describe just how that works and what a business can do to try to recover if there is a ransomware attack?
Sure. So I'll begin with basically how it works. So what they try to do is deliver a malware infected file, typically something that comes in through an email attachment, for example, or visiting an infected website. It can even come through on a USB drive. Quite often, when we do social engineering exercises, we'll leave these flash drives in a parking lot or in the receptionist area just to test out users' willingness to plug them in. And unfortunately, the vast majority of times, curiosity gets the best of them and they plug it in. So no matter how the malware is delivered, again, whether it be email or a website or a USB drive, once it's there, that's when the fun begins, if you will. And that ransomware then deploys itself and starts spreading across. And what used to be basically just a locking of a single computer or a small number of computers, these ransomware attackers have now gone to the next level. And the process has evolved. So what they do now is there's an additional layer of extortion there, Peter. So they first take a copy of your data before encrypting it. So now if you don't pay to decrypt your system, not only are they going to basically leave your systems in a locked state, but they're also going to then threaten to put your information out into the public or onto the dark web. So That's really, why it's so dangerous now, what these attacks are. So what can you do to prevent them? The first and most important step you can do is really provide the awareness and education to the end users. Over 90% of these incidents are occurring, at the end user level, basically through spear phishing emails primarily. So if you have an educated team of employees, they act as almost a virtual human firewall, and they're really able to prevent many of those types of attacks from ever getting through to the network.
Is part of it teaching your employees how to recognize something which may be suspicious? And I say that out of experience because barely a day goes by that I don't see something in my email inbox that looks kind of suspicious to me, or comes from an outfit that I never heard of, or there
Absolutely.
seems to be a typographical error in the return address, for example.
Absolutely. So providing that education is certainly, again, the best way. Now, up until the last few years, I would say that the education would probably be good enough to prevent the majority of these attacks. But I highly recommend that businesses take a trust but verify approach, meaning that in addition to providing the awareness training, they also do simulated spear phishing attacks, basically send out benign spear phishing attacks in an attempt to phish their own employees. This will really help a company identify those users that need some additional fortification of knowledge, if you will, basically to sit through the training again. If you see repeated failings of them being able to detect those simulated spear phishing emails, chances are they're going to be unable to detect an actual spear phishing attack.
So is testing a client system an important part of what you do?
Absolutely. Again, we have a great team that's able to do something called penetration testing and vulnerability scanning, which is basically acting as a simulated bad guy, for lack of a better term. And what that allows us to do is to really kick the tires on an environment, see if there are any vulnerabilities within that environment, and then report that back to the client so they can address them before an actual attacker were to arrive.
Have there been situations where you've gone into a business and they have told you just a tale of woe of how their system was attacked, how their business was disrupted, and then it was up to you to try to rebuild things for them?
Absolutely. In addition to our cybersecurity team, we also have a great managed service provider, MSP team as well. So when it comes to basically saying we need to rebuild from scratch, we have the expertise to come in there, assess what the business needs, and put the proper technology in place so that their business works at an optimal level.
How is it that Citrin-Cooperman managed to develop this expertise to begin with? Somehow it just seems anathema to an accounting firm, basically.
Yeah, no, all the credit goes to the leadership of our firm. The leaders here identified this as a need several years ago that, basically accounting services were just not going to cut it in the future. And that we needed to add that on and provide, our clients with the best of the best across the board of whatever services may be needed. So again, tip of the cap off to our leadership team several years ago for identifying this, and then our partnership group for working together to establish the groups needed to provide these services.
In addition to hearing a lot about cybersecurity, we're also hearing a lot these days about artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And what's your take on that? Is this something that we're all going to have to deal with in the future? And how do we control it? How do we prevent literally the computers from taking over?
Mhm. So Peter, that's an excellent question, one that does keep the geeks here up at night, because like any technology, whether it be the internet, or anything of that magnitude, it can be used for great good, but unfortunately, there is an opportunity to utilize it for evil as well. For example, artificial intelligence is fantastic at providing really, detailed answers to very complicated problems, and doing so at almost light speed. However, that same technology could be corrupted and used to develop, for example, new malware, because this artificial intelligence now is capable of writing code, for example. So all it would take is the wrong person at the wheel to tell it to do something a little bit more diabolical. And artificial intelligence can expedite the process of coming up with new cyber attacks. So unfortunately, again, we need to be very cautious. I think it's a wonderful technology and can unlock some amazing things for mankind, not to be too dramatic, but it can also be used for evil. So we have to proceed with a little bit of caution here and know that the bad guys are always looking to take advantage of any new technology.
Is it your experience that businesses in general are getting all they can get out of computers, or are they leaving a lot of capability on the table when they set up a system?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that the typical user may not be wringing every benefit out of their technology. Certainly, that's why being provided with education and collaboration is a really good way to learn how to again take advantage of all of these amazing features. And I'll use as a simple example Microsoft Office. Many of us use approximately 15 to 20% of the capabilities of these amazing tools, but with a little bit of additional advanced education, you can really unlock the potential of your technology. No doubt about it.
Can you give us a little shopping list of some of the things that a well-maintained, well-designed computer system can do for a business? Payroll, obviously, maybe inventory. What are some of the other things that you see?
Sure. Again, the sky's the limit. Your general ledger, all of your accounting functionality can be handled through that. You can handle your workflows. In the accounting world, in the professional services world, we often utilize tools that assist with the workflow process to make it more efficient for both ourselves and our communications with our clients. So again, virtually anything that's imaginable that we've used in more analog versions of in the past, technology can certainly unlock some of the advantages of those tools.
What recommendations do you commonly make to new clients and existing clients about upgrading their computer systems?
Mhm. Yeah, so typically what you want to do, there comes a point in the life cycle of technology, where, for example, after approximately 3 to 5 years, a typical laptop, will begin functioning a little bit slower. It fills with data after a while. The applications that are being run are a little bit more advanced, and the original, hardware isn't able to keep up with that. And there comes a point where you start to lose productivity for the end users, for the employees of the company using that technology. And it actually is more cost effective to replace it, at a certain point in time than it is to continue using it and taking away from the productivity of the employees. So again, whether it be servers or laptops or desktops or even mobile devices, again, there's a certain amount of lifespan you're going to get out of them. And again, I'd put that somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range, depending on the work that you're doing. And at that point, if you continue to use them, operating systems may no longer be supported. Some of the applications may no longer be supported by the vendors. And again, just the operational speeds of that equipment are going to slow down enough where, again, it's no longer cost effective to continue using.
Are there people out there who still remember what a floppy disk is? and what do you see in the way of future technology that we're all going to be adopting? What's your predictions?
Yeah, so there's a lot coming out, on the horizon. Again, you already really touched on one of the key pieces there, and that's going to be artificial intelligence. I think what the pandemic also provided to us is the fact that we're now going to be a distributed workforce. That basically we're going to be able to work from anywhere where we have an internet connection. We're no longer going to be relegated to cubicles and working in an office environment. Now, you could argue, and there are certainly good arguments on either side, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's certainly already something that we're seeing, that was expedited over the last couple of years. But again, that combined with artificial intelligence, and things are going to look quite different than they do now in just a few more years.
Does that spreading of the work locations also mean more opportunities for the criminals to attack computer systems? does it do something that will require an even greater effort on cybersecurity?
Absolutely. And great question, Peter. The short answer is yes, it does impact the security. When you're in an office environment, the IT teams typically have a much better control over, the inputs and the outputs coming into that office environment. When people are working from home, not so much. For example, they did a study in over 80% of home routers, which we all utilize in our environments, have not been updated since they were purchased. So you may be using equipment, for example, that's 3, 4 years old, and the internal operating system within that router has never been touched. It's never been updated, leaving vulnerabilities in place. In addition to that, there's also many of us have home speakers that we utilize that are constantly listening and recording. That's a concern from my perspective. If there's any kind of sensitive conversations being had, who is listening on the other end? Again, if you have, for example, an Amazon Echo device, again, so working from a home environment, certainly some additional and elevated cybersecurity risks.
So does that mean that if I have a router that I'm renting from, say, an internet service provider
Mhm.
here in Westchester County, I may make my company's system vulnerable?
So the hope is that because you're utilizing something, say, from a Verizon or a Comcast or a Cox or one of the major, internet providing companies out there, is that they'll do a good job at keeping that device updated, but it varies by company. So I would highly recommend that you reach out to your support from your internet provider and confirm that they are in fact running updates on the firmware within those devices. Now, if you have something that you purchased yourself and you're utilizing to provide Wi-Fi throughout your home, for example, and it was not provided by your internet provider, then chances are that device has deficient security in place, and that again, the firmware having not been updated for years could have vulnerabilities in place that could be taken advantage of by unauthorized individuals.
How would you sum up your recommendation to me as, let's say, a business owner
Mhm.
in terms of what I need to do to be sure that I have a computer system that's not only efficient and useful and is going to benefit my business, but also not make me vulnerable to
Mhm.
being put out of business by some operator in a foreign country, for example?
Yeah, so from a strategic perspective, Peter, I highly recommend having a professional, execute a risk assessment, at least on an annual basis, or when there's a material change to your technology environment. Having someone external to your IT resource come in and do again a neutral assessment can go a long way, because there may be some blind spots from that existing IT resource. It's like asking a chef if their food tastes good. Of course, they're going to say yes. So bringing in a third party, a neutral perspective, is a good way. So strategically, I would do risk assessments, and tactically, I would really put a focus on educating the employees. Technology's come such a long way, and it does such a great job at keeping us safe. The criminals know that they need to now focus on us. We've effectively become the weakest link in the chain. So we need to educate ourselves on what these attacks consist of and how to detect them, and more importantly, how to avoid them.
Is that something that Citrin-Cooperman can also do? I mean, you're working on the side of the client, obviously,
Mhm.
in the broader picture of handling their financial questions and obligations. But in terms of the computer, can you be, and the objective outsider you're talking about in doing an assessment of these systems?
Absolutely, yes. Again, we come in and we never take an adversarial approach with the existing IT resource. We work very collaboratively with them, and again, our job is to get in there and really provide an objective look at their environment. So, short answer is yes.
Are there things that you find particularly rewarding about the type of work you do? For example, if you're able to find that there were attempts to attack a system and you're able to work out a way to block it, is that something that's especially rewarding for you personally?
Absolutely. Yeah. So two of the greatest rewards are first, exactly what you just said, Peter, protecting our clients, finding a way to keep them protected, really provides a great feeling of accomplishment for our team. And we have a great team. Secondarily, I think what brings, a good deal of satisfaction is being able to communicate and cut through kind of the techno speak, if you will. Business owners are not really receptive to wanting to be hit with, a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms. They really just want to cut to the chase and tell me, all right, what do we need to do to keep our company safe, and give it to me in plain English. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on, and the ability to communicate very clearly with not just IT, because quite frankly, I can speak nerd, as I call it, and really get into the trenches with the IT guys. Not a problem. I love that. I enjoy it. But I also pride myself in being able to then go into whether it be a boardroom or a one-on-one conversation with ownership, and just really be able to convey, all right, this is what you're facing, and this is how you need to protect yourself, and this is what it's going to cost, and really cut through a lot of that and get right to the point.
So, in summary, what would your message be for a business owner, a chief executive at a major company in terms of cybersecurity and how Citrin-Cooperman can help?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's critically important for ownership and that CEO and that C-suite to really reflect a culture within the company that puts an importance on security. Because if they're reluctant or don't find value in it, and it's just a budget line item, that's going to be shared by all the employees within the company. So it's really critically important that those individuals, set the tone, if you will, really establish a culture where security is paramount to protecting the employees of the company and the customers of the company. So again, that's really important. And in terms of again how Citrin-Cooperman can help, we can absolutely partner, with just about any company across the industry spectrum, regardless of size, and provide the exact resources that are needed to get the job done.
Well, Kevin Ricci, thanks so much for being with us. You've taken a complex subject and really boiled it down to the essence, which tells me that there are a lot of businesses out there that need to pay some attention to their vulnerabilities in this world of computers. I'm Peter Katz for Citrin-Cooperman Corner Chats and West Fair Communications. Thanks so much.
Thank you.